I've been playing a significant amount of Satisfactory recently, around 60 hours in this base, and over that time I've discovered some quality of life improvements, just general controls and ideas that I want to share for anybody who wants to check out this game. First piece of advice I have is for players who are familiar with the concept of factory games. Probably most popular these days is Factorio. If you know how crafting works and general just conveyor belt logic, you need power to run assemblers, and you have conveyor belts, and you use splitters to move things. You don't really need to go through the tutorial. I found it kind of mediocre. It's teaching controls, but in the end, it also had me crafting on the craft bench a lot more that I appreciated. So, especially if you are playing a multiplayer, and somebody who knows, just go straight to the main game. Now, speaking of multiplayer, I do highly advise it. If you and your friends enjoy these types of games, it actually plays very well. Now, the quality of life improvement that I want to advertise is that there is some severe performance issues with the default configuration. I don't remember all of them specifically. On the Satisfactory wiki, it actually has an article on how to improve multiplayer performance, specifically increasing the bandwidth available. Now, one of the things that I learned while playing with Dean is that constructing something like this is actually a really good idea for a multiplayer component. If you're playing with like a young child or something where you're really coaching, you can work together on like the core aspects of a factory. But when it comes to playing with two people who really know what they're doing, a lot of times you'll feel like you're stepping on each other's toes when you're working very close. And so what happens is that this is my base, and I found myself tearing down sections that Dean built for me because I had stylistic differences. And what really made it a lot more fun was when we realized that building the main base together, it's my base. I can ask for tedious stuff from Dean, but if I was asking for like, please build an assembly line, a lot of times he didn't build it in the way I would. Not necessarily wrong, but wrong in my eyes. So when it came to stuff like the power station, he could go off into a slightly different area of the map and just pipe in the electricity, or you could do the same with raw materials and bring it in. So let's discuss controls a little bit. A lot of quality of life comes from just being able to stay organized. It's pretty obvious. You can click and drag between your inventory. That's one way to do things. Now, double-clicking also will bring an entire stack over, and then shift-clicking will also bring an entire stack over. Perhaps more importantly, control-clicking will bring as much inventory over to fill. Another quality of life item that is not obvious is the to-do list. So for example, if I want to build a new coal generation area, there's a little plus here, and you can add some items to your to-do list. And now I need a whole bunch of stuff. And you can make, let's see here, I also need some power lines to go with that, and probably some conveyor belts, and probably a miner. We don't need to get too specific about this. Miner. And it comes over here to the to-do list. All right, perhaps one of the most important controls that's not properly documented by the game is the copy, I would call it. So by pressing F, you get the deletion command, and you can delete by hovering over something, hold down. That's already documented. Now, it's not really well documented that control allows you to select multiple items. Right now I'm tapping control, and then if you hold down control, you can kind of paint, and then delete. And now I have a big hole in my floor. The other item that's not very well documented is if you center click with the mouse wheel, you actually, while looking at something in the delete command, you now are placing it. And this makes life a lot faster, where you can be building something and toggle between multiple parts without having to go into the menu and picking out what you want. Instead, you can just press F, center click, and now you've got another instance of this assembler, for example, that you want to build. Another option that's handy when staying organized is using control to align. And so this is a more coarse snap. Normally you're on this little like grid system on the foundations. Holding control forces it to line up with other equipment, like here, or just kind of arbitrarily over there. But it's going to go to the entrances and exits of your equipment, or just the center line. Related to staying organized in your base, I really like to use splitters and mergers to the largest degree, and building vertically. This game, one of my favorite parts of this game versus Factorio is that you can always move up if you run out of space. Now, the tip that I have is that if you are building a merger or a splitter like this, on the ground it will snap to the entrances and exits and center lines, but on an elevated conveyor belt, it's freeform, and my OCD gets really mad about this. Instead of adding the splitters to an existing elevated conveyor, put the splitters down first and then remove the splitters. Now, regarding progression and research, there's a few different mechanisms, and at the beginning of the game it wasn't obvious that I wanted to pursue all of them. So the core is taught in the tutorial, where you're going through the tiers and you're shipping off resources to your space overlords, and it gives you more access to technology. So like new pipelines, trains, that sort of thing. I was working heavily towards these objectives. Now, I also unlocked the MAM, which is more of a traditional research, but down specific research paths. It wasn't obvious to me that there was going to be value added from going down these paths, but there's actually some very core game mechanics that depend on these research trees. I don't think it's 100% critical, but it makes the game a lot more fun with some of these unlocked technologies. Similarly, the Awesome Shop I thought was a completely frivolous place, since it's all starts with walls, which is cosmetic, and I don't really care. But there are some very important quality of life items. The double ramp foundation makes scaling a mountain a lot easier. The ladders help organize your factory so that you can get places. And then I think that's it. Now, related to the research trees, you can look these up on the Satisfactory wiki, which is well documented. In theory, you're cheating. I don't know. Have that moral debate yourself. I enjoy it a lot more if I know where I'm going, especially with these factory games, so you don't paint yourself in a corner necessarily. So as I mentioned, the wiki is one of the best places for documentation. There's also in-game documentation, but I find it a lot easier to have a second monitor with the wiki open. For example, here I have the space elevator in case I forget what resources I need to deliver. I don't have to run over the space elevator and look at the machine. I can pull it up here, and then I can even see what the modular engine takes as its recipe. Other important resources, Satisfactory Tools is an example, where it has multiple things, but I use this production planner the most. So for example, I just said that modular engine is required for the space elevator. This did not render correctly. Modular engine. So if I'm making 10 modular engines per minute, this is the supply chain that I would need. And it's maybe not a perfect representation for your base, but it really does help stay organized on what materials you need incoming, and then how many processors in order to make it happen. Having this on a second monitor when I'm building a new section of the factory is really handy. Another tool that I've found, and it helps a lot, is the Satisfactory Calculator Interactive Map. This is you might consider it cheating. I do not. If you load your save game, you can see your factory, which is really cool. But also, maybe more importantly, it can help you plan expansions. Exploring's a big part of the game. I really enjoy it, but ultimately I don't want to waste a bunch of hours building an expansion in some place that's suboptimal. Especially, I would recommend doing a little bit of research on your first playthrough, or maybe like your second playthrough after a very experimental start. Just figuring out where is a good place that has resources. So like this is a starting area and has lots of iron ore. If you were to start here on accident, you'd have to pump in iron ore from the mines. Another quality of life item that wasn't made obvious to me is that B pulls up a flashlight. So in the night cycle, you can actually see things when the bad guys are attacking. Now, and another fun thing to advertise is that vehicles are kind of broken right now. I suspect it will get fixed, but it does make exploring a lot easier. The animals don't know how to treat them, and they don't take damage, the vehicles specifically. So like you can hop up here and this guy's gonna run around and ignore me. As soon as I step down, he'll aggro against me. So I like this. I think it's a feature, even though it feels buggy, because exploring's fun, but it's nerve-wracking if you can die all the time. So I'm playing by myself right now, and I might demonstrate, well, not demonstrate, but discuss a very relevant feature to multiplayer. If you die in multiplayer, oh boy, your ally can actually pick you up. In single player, you just respawn. Oh cool, I killed him. And when you respawn, then you have to go back. You respawn at your base, and you have to walk through the wilds, and you don't have your stuff. And it's, I don't know, tedious. If you are exploring with your friend, then you have that extra safety net. If they survive, they can pick you up, and you both can go on your merry way. So in regards to quality of life when exploring, one of the biggest things I learned is that the Explorer is just so useful in driving around. Other vehicles can't do much off-roading, but this can just crawl up walls. Like, that just, physics doesn't explain this. So I hope those tips weren't too boring, and I hope they give some insight if you're starting off the game, or if you've been playing and it just points out some controls that aren't obvious. Let me know if this is interesting content. I could make details on my base, although I'm not terribly innovative. I like to build loops for conveyor belts. That's my MO. Overall, thanks for watching.